Hi everyone, I'm Shaylin here with Reedsy. So today we've got another video on NaNoWriMo or National Novel Writing Month. Today we're going to be talking about getting through the mid-NaNoWriMo slump. One thing that I have always found is just a consistent across every NaNoWriMo, and that I think pretty much everyone I know who's done NaNoWriMo has also experienced, is this mid-NaNoWriMo slump. The month starts super strong, you're really excited, you're writing a ton, it feels easy, and then the shine kind of wears off, you start to get a little tired. Most people will tell you that week 3 is usually the hardest week to get through. By the time you get to the last week of the month, it's kind of like the final stretch, but week 3 can be really difficult. A lot of people find this the most difficult week. So today I've got a few tips to help you get through the mid-NaNoWriMo slump. Tip number 1, take time to brainstorm new material. At the start of the month, you're really pumped because you have so much fresh material that you've been thinking about that you're ready and excited to write. You know, you spent all this time planning your book, thinking about your book, and so it's really exciting to finally get to write it. But at this point, you've maybe exhausted a lot of that material. You've written a lot of the stuff that you were excited to write. And so sometimes what you really need as kind of like a pick-me-up halfway through the month is to brainstorm some new material that you can feel really excited about. Find something new about your story to excite you, the way you felt excited about your story before you started writing it. Dedicate a couple hours to doing some brainstorming or some free writing. I find that when it comes to brainstorming, the two best methods are free writing and research. So for free writing, just writing down anything that comes to mind, getting down the bad ideas so that you can eventually get to the good ideas. And the other method I find that works really well is researching. Research concepts related to your book or that are relevant to your book, because that can spark a lot. Tip number 2, adjust your plan or outline. At this point, you've been writing for a couple weeks, and a lot of the time, no matter how extensively you've planned, stories just change a little on the page. Characters come out a little differently, scenes turn out a little differently than how you'd envisioned them, and sometimes this can have a domino effect on your plan or outline. This is a great time to evaluate your outline or your plan and change and adjust it based on what you've written, based on the new nuances to your story that may have appeared. This will give you more confidence going into the rest of the month. And it might also just help the ease of writing. If writing feels hard, it might be because you're trying to write from a plan or an outline that doesn't really make sense with your story anymore. Tip number 3 is to evaluate and, if necessary, readjust your goals. You probably had goals going into the month. Your goal may have been just to hit the 50,000 word mark. You may have set your own word goal, or you may have had some other kind of goal. My goal for NaNoWriMo this year was just to write every single day. At this point in the month, it might be pretty clear whether you're on track to reach your goal or not. If you're on track to reach your word count goal, then that's fantastic. But you may not be on track to reach your word count goal. If that's the case, stop, evaluate your goals, and adjust them if necessary. Maybe it would be impossible for you to hit the 50,000 word mark, but maybe you can hit the 30,000 word mark instead. If you're not going to hit your original goal, instead of giving up, make a new goal and a new plan so you have something new to strive for, so it can still feel like a success at the end of the month, rather than getting halfway through the month and feeling like you've already failed. But if you feel that NaNoWriMo has been going really well, try to take note of why. What parameters of this writing challenge have been working so well for you, so you can replicate it in your process throughout the year. Tip number 4, evaluate your protagonist's goals and motivations. You've evaluated your goals, but what about your protagonist's goals? Your main character's goal and the conflict surrounding that goal is the fuel of your story. One reason why you might be hitting a writing slump is because you've gone a little off stray with your plot. And one of the most common reasons why stories lose momentum is because the main character isn't active enough, there's not enough conflict, the stakes aren't high enough. These are really basic building blocks of a story, but it's very easy to lose sight of them. I usually find that if my plot is kind of dwindling to a halt and losing momentum, the easiest way to get out of that is to ask myself, okay, wait, what does my character want in this scene? And a lot of the time, the reason the scene isn't working is because my character doesn't really have anything to pursue. So if you feel like the problem is in your book itself, evaluate your character's goals and motivations and how you can keep the story moving. It's very easy at the beginning of the book to write a lot because it's the beginning. You have a lot to draw on. You have so much material to draw on. You have all these different subplots, you're setting up new characters to introduce. Once you hit Act 2, things can get a lot more difficult. And this is the point where a lot of the time we start to lose sense of our character's goal, we lose sense of the stakes and the conflict, and it makes the writing a lot more difficult because the story itself isn't working. So if you feel like the writing is difficult, it might be just those basic building blocks of your story. Take stock of them, evaluate everything, ask yourself those basic questions about your story. What does my character want? How are they trying to get it? What do they have to lose? You may have to adjust a little, but it'll make it much easier to write if you have those things fueling the story. Number 5 is to explore new facets of your story. If you're feeling like the writing is getting a little stale, a little tired, try exploring a new facet of your story. Maybe there's a new character relationship you want to explore, or a new aspect of the world. I often turn to flashback. If I feel like I'm a little stuck, a lot of the time it's a great time to explore your character's backstory, write some flashbacks. You'll keep producing words by going backwards into the story. Now you might find later on that this flashback is not well placed and you need to move it, or maybe not all of it is relevant, and that's okay. But it can give you some renewed energy for your project if you're able to stop and write something that feels fresh and new and exciting, but that's still within the world of your story. Tip number 6 is to change up your writing routine. Burnout happens when we do the same thing over and over with no variation. Now, obviously you've maybe only been writing daily or almost daily for a couple weeks, but if you're feeling like you're starting to get tired, you're getting to the beginning of burnout, it might be because you've done the same thing too repetitively. So see if there's a way you can change up your writing process. This can be as simple as changing the room that you write in, changing how your document is formatted, even changing the time of day that you write. But if there's any way you can change your writing routine, even if it's something extremely small, that can really help break up the monotony of your writing sessions. Tip number 7 is to reread what you've written. I'm the type of writer who rereads and edits my work constantly while I'm writing it, which is very antithetical to the point of NaNoWriMo, which is to just stop editing your work and write. Last NaNoWriMo, I found that for the first time I was just writing words without stopping to read what I was writing. And so about halfway through the month, for the first time I actually stopped and I read over some of the words that I'd written. I was able to actually see what I'd spent all this time producing. Because I hadn't read over the work like I normally do, I almost didn't feel like I'd done anything. Like I could see the word count, but it almost didn't feel like I'd actually written any words because I hadn't actually read them. And so just taking a day, it doesn't even have to be a whole day, but just taking a little bit of time to read over what you've written can be really motivational, because you'll actually kind of see the fruits of your labor and you'll see, oh, this is what I've been putting so much time into. This isn't just a number, say 20,000 words. These are actual words that I've written with actual scenes that are exciting to read and fun to read. See what you've put all this time into making the past few weeks, and it can feel much more worth it. And finally, tip number 8 is don't be afraid to let yourself recharge if you need to. Writing a book is typically more of a marathon than a sprint, but the way NaNoWriMo frames it is more a sprint than a marathon. You're doing a really long task, writing a whole book in a pretty short time frame. Just 1 month. That may be typical for some writers to write a whole draft in 1 month, but it's definitely not typical for the majority of writers. You may be feeling really tired, so don't be afraid to let yourself recharge. Don't feel like you have to be producing at max capacity every single day, all the time. It may be better for you in the long run if you take 1 day off, or lower your word target for a couple days so you can recharge and rest and actually have the energy to get to the end of the month, than if you just push yourself to write super high word counts every single day and completely burn out before the end of the month. It's okay to take time to rest. NaNoWriMo shouldn't be something that's negatively affecting your health or your mental health, and if you feel like it is, well, that'll certainly affect your writing, but it'll also just affect you in general, and you don't want that, right? NaNoWriMo should be something that you do for fun and that you're getting something positive out of, and if it's really just draining you, or you feel like it could have the potential to really just drain you, it's okay to take a day off. It's okay to take a couple days off. Give yourself that time to recharge. Even if you're still hitting the word counts, it's important to still make time for yourself to recharge. Don't feel guilty for watching a movie or taking a day off or something like that. You need that time in order to keep producing to the end of the month, and also so that you don't burn yourself out in the process. So those are my tips for getting through the Mid-NaNoWriMo slump. I would love to hear how your NaNoWriMo is going. I'm not really doing a traditional NaNoWriMo this year, so I don't really have much to say, but I hope that your NaNoWriMos are successful, and I would love to hear what tips or survival strategies are getting you through this NaNoWriMo. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new videos from us. We've got new writing, editing, and publishing tips every Tuesday and Friday. Until next time, bye!